Do you want to know how much money Bastion makes as a stripper? It's around $33,000. Today I'm going to rank the Overwatch heroes by how much money they would make in the United States with their Overwatch job. Now for this video, I'm going to ignore Overwatch agents as a job. The only exception to this rule will be, I think, 2 characters because they don't have actual jobs outside of Overwatch. And so I'm either going to be going with the highest paying job, or hopefully the more lore accurate one if I can. And I'm not going to use the Overwatch agent as a job unless if I need to. Coming up first in F tier is actually Zenyatta. Unlike in other tier lists where he somehow gets higher up normally, in this tier list he actually doesn't really have income. Before the Omnic Crisis, Zenyatta actually did have some occupations, but from what I remember they were actually just like robot specific jobs, and so even if he did have a job, he wouldn't be getting paid for his job. Nonetheless, his actual job is going around giving people inspiration, enlightenment, and so he's not getting paid anyways. Plus, he doesn't need it since he's an Omnic and he seems to be self-sufficient. This is one of those moments where I'd be okay with putting him in D tier if I need to. We can assume that Zenyatta has some money, or at least makes some money, just in case he needs to get into somewhere or something like that. But I'm going to keep him in F tier simply because he has no good or stable income, even though he technically could have money, and I'm sure people donate to him at some point. However, with that being said, next up is Echo. Now before I place her, because this one's a really difficult one, I need to explain to you what she did. So her job is a multi-role adaptive robot. Being a multi-role adaptive robot means that you're probably going to get no income. However, Echo could technically negotiate and get some sort of income from somewhere, because she is a very useful Omnic. Zenyatta has chosen to be a monk that travels around, while Echo is more for utility rather than enlightenment, so I'm sure she'd be okay with working for free, but technically because of what she does, she could get paid. And so I'm not really sure which tier to put her in, and that is why I made the E tier for Echo. We are actually going to move out of the F tier now and go to the D tier, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think there's anyone in D tier. According to what I've researched, none of the Overwatch characters actually go under the poverty line, and so, believe it or not, no one's going to be down there for the individual United States poverty line, which by the way is around $15,000. I'm not sure how accurate that number is, but I just looked it up and that's what it said. So going immediately into C tier is actually Bastion. Apparently, the United States does not like Omnics. Bastion, according to his wiki, is a workshop assistant, and a workshop assistant gets paid around $29,000, which I forgot to mention, I'm using the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, and when I'm not using it, I'm just simply looking it up. So these numbers are going to be wildly different depending on what you do, depending on how you research, because you could get paid $100,000 for a job or $20,000. So these numbers could be very wrong, but that's why we're just having fun with it. So Bastion's a workshop assistant. He makes $29,000, and that's it. Next up, you guys are going to have to bear with me on this one, is actually Mercy. Mercy is a field medic and a first responder. Now, according to what I've seen on the Brew statistics, Mercy would make around $36,000, which doesn't seem right, I'm going to be honest with you. Mercy, who is able to raise the dead, makes only $36,000 a year, which, again, doesn't make sense. And so I'm going to leave her in C tier, but I'm going to move her later, and you'll see why. With that being said though, we're actually going to be moving out of the C tier already to the B tier. I believe that every Overwatch character that's remaining will make over $50,000, plus we'll be moving Mercy. The first person in the B tier is Junkrat. Junkrat, according to his wiki, is an anarchist, thief, demolitionist, mercenary, and scavenger. So I'm going to immediately rule out Anarchist, Scavenger, and Thief, just due to the fact that it's probably going to be inconsistent money, and he actually has 2 jobs that you can technically do. So the first thing I want to look at is Demolitionist. A Demolitionist will make around $50,000, I'm not really sure if that's the higher end or lower end, but assuming he's good at his job, we'll say $50,000. And a Mercenary actually pays more than that. However, because it's Junkrat, I'm going to actually go with the more accurate job. So I believe he's going to be a demolitionist and make $50,000. Next up on our list is Baptiste. Baptiste's occupation is a combat medic. Now you may realize already that Baptiste is a combat medic and Mercy's a field medic / first responder, and she's basically on the same tier as him. However, for whatever reason, Baptiste gets paid $15,000 more, at around $51,000. And personally, I don't think that makes sense. And that's why I said I was going to move Mercy up, because I really think they do virtually the same job. Obviously, I know they're different, but Mercy does not make $36,000 or whatever I said. She is way more skilled at her job than that. And so I'm going to put Mercy and Baptiste at $51,000 in B tier. However, you could technically go higher than that because, again, Mercy can resurrect people. But unfortunately, we don't really have a job that can connect to that. Because if we could raise the dead, I feel like that would be a very high-paying job and we would know about it. Raising the dead job. Okay, well, not what I was going for, but... Okay, so the question is, do we change Mercy to be a funeral director and make $116,000, which would move her all the way up into A tier? I'm thinking about it, actually. I think that'd be really funny to see her as a funeral director. We're doing it, I don't care. Mercy the funeral director now. Anyways, moving on. Next up is Ana. Ana is a sharpshooter, Overwatch 2nd Command Captain, or bounty hunter. Ana used to be a sharpshooter in the Overwatch 2nd Command. However, the thing that makes the most sense is bounty hunter, simply because that's what she's doing now, and the fact that Overwatch has disbanded, and sharpshooter is very similar to bounty hunter. According to learn.com, around 75% of bounty hunters have a median salary of $61,000. And since I'm not fact-checking that, Ana goes here. Next up is Zarya, and she is just a soldier. According to my research, she would make around $62,000. That's a little bit high for an army soldier, but Zarya is a high-end soldier. Zarya is, the best of the best. So $62,000 does not seem that bad. So Zarya is in B tier. Next up is Junker Queen. Junker Queen is the ruler of Junkertown, but also a gladiator. And for whatever odd reason, I got a number for gladiator, which was $67,000. So I don't know who's hiring a gladiator for $67,000 a year, but Junker Queen would have that job, so whoever's looking out for a gladiator, if you need to pay them on a yearly basis, it's $67,000. Next up is actually a two-way tie between two heroes, and that is Orisa and Roadhog. Orisa's occupation is a guardian robot, and Roadhog is an enforcer and a bodyguard. So Roadhog's is very simple, he's just a bodyguard, and a bodyguard will make around $69,000 a year.
Nice.
According to the number I found, of course. And Orisa is a guardian robot, but I replaced that as a bodyguard, and so Orisa also makes $69,000. And before we go too far in, I do know that these numbers are, again, probably really inaccurate, but hey, this is the job listing that these Overwatch heroes found, so congratulations to Orisa and Roadhog for making $69,000. Next up is Reinhardt. Reinhardt is formerly a Crusader, formerly an Overwatch agent, and an adventurer. I have no idea how an adventurer is a job. The Crusaders were a German paramilitary organization active during the Omnic Crisis. There's only one issue with that, and that's that the Omnic Crisis never happened in real life, and so I can't really mark Crusaders as a job. On top of that, being an Overwatch agent also isn't in the real world, and so I was gonna use the occupation for adventurer, but I can't really find a number for that. And so here's where that rare exception of me using Overwatch agent as a job will come into play. So according to Indeed.com, the most reliable source, the average US Army Special Agent yearly pay in the United States is approximately $73,000. Since that is more than $69,000, that is why he's above Roadhog, Orisa, and all the other people. Let's move on to our favorite cybernetic ninja, Genji. So according to Genji's wiki, his occupation is an adventurer, which I said I don't have a number for. So does that mean that he just makes no money? Unlike Zenyatta, Genji was actually a part of Overwatch, and so there's kind of a reason that I placed him next to Reinhardt. He also was an Overwatch agent, so I'm just going to put him next to Reinhardt. Even though it doesn't list his job as an Overwatch agent, he was. And you could actually make the argument for Echo to be moved up with them, simply due to the fact that she was also an Overwatch agent. But I have a feeling that they never paid her just because she's an Omnic, so we'll keep her in E tier. Next up on our list is Cassidy. Cassidy has quite a few jobs, so let's get through it. So at some point he was a factory worker, at some point he was a farmhand, at some point he was a criminal, don't know why that's an occupation. He was an Overwatch agent, a bounty hunter, and a mercenary. First things first, since we already know that bounty hunter is on this list, I can kind of knock out factory worker, farmhand, and criminal, because number one, he formally did that, and I think bounty hunter is more accurate to what job he would do. I'm going to also knock out Overwatch agent simply because I said that if I have a job other than Overwatch agent, I'm going to take it. And so all we got to do is look at mercenary. According to, again, the most reliable source ever, talent.com, the average mercenary salary in the USA is $75,000 a year, which again is above the $50,000 and is under the $90,000, so he is in B tier. Because Mercenary pays more than Bounty Hunter, I'm gonna go with it. Next up is Reaper, who also has quite a few jobs. He used to be a police officer, he used to be a soldier, he used to be a strike commander, he used to be a Blackwatch agent, he used to be a mercenary, and a Talon field agent / council member. Off the bat, I'm going to knock out every job that he used to formerly do because his current job is a mercenary / Talon field agent / council member. To make this even easier, I'm going to also knock out Talon field agent / council member simply because Talon doesn't exist in the real world. So that just leaves mercenary, which you may see where this is going. Cassidy was a mercenary, Reaper's a mercenary, same place. Hopefully we don't have too many Creeper fans out there, and I'm gonna move on. Next up on our list is Mora. Mora is quite simply a geneticist. Mora is a geneticist. Genitals. Hang on.
Geneticist.
Mora is a geneticist. I can't say that word.
Geneticist.
Geneticist. There we go, I think I got it. Mora is a geneticist. According to what I found, geneticists get around $80,000. It says that I chose the higher end number because I actually don't have it pulled up right now. Because I was looking at how to pronounce geneticist. I still can't say it, I'm still looking at the pronunciation. And so she makes around $80,000. That's higher than mercenary. There you go. After not being able to speak, we're going on to Symmetra. That actually, if you know the Overwatch lore, is actually a really bad and coincidental joke that I did not mean to make. Symmetra is an architect, which on her wiki, I think it's spelled wrong too, which is kind of funny. According to the I can't speak anymore now. According to the labor statistics site, I almost couldn't say that, architects make around $80,000, and since it's actually above $80,000, that's why I put it above Mora. And so Symmetra is in B tier because she makes $80,000, roughly. I do understand that there's, their Overwatch abilities, like Symmetra can make hard light, which I'm sure would be worth more than actual architecture. However, if I used that for Sim, I would have to use that for almost every other character, and most of the characters would just end up being really high up on the list. And so I'm going to be looking kind of at realistically what they would do, and not really based on their abilities, or else Mercy would literally be saving lives. With that being said, we're going to do our final B tier with Pharah. Pharah's occupation is a security chief. Now, even though I know she's a security chief and not the chief of security, I'm going to go with the chief of security number because I find that much funnier, and the number is $89,000. And so assuming that Pharah could get chief of security, she would make $89,000, which is barely making her knock it in the A tier. But luckily we have quite a few A tier characters, so let's get into them. The first person to be added to the A tier, besides our funeral manager, is May. May is a climatologist and an adventurer, which I don't have a number for, like I've said like 3 times now. However, I do have a number for a climatologist. According to my very reliable sources, May would make around $94,000. Next up, with someone who's going to make slightly more money, is Brigitte. Brigitte's a mechanical engineer and another adventurer and a squire. Now, I'm not really confident that a squire would be paid money nowadays, and adventurer, I'm sure you know where I'm going to go with that. However, according to my very reliable resource, a mechanical engineer would make $95,000. Next up, we got a 2-way tie again, and that's Sojourn and Soldier. Sojourn was an infantry woman, special forces operator, Overwatch captain, and acting commander, which I'm not really sure what most of those mean. And Soldier was a soldier, Overwatch commander, and vigilante. Believe it or not, the thing that I'm going to choose for both of them is actually Overwatch commander. According to Glassdoor.com, the most reliable source, Army commanders would get paid around $116,000 a year, which again, I'm not really sure if that's true, but it's a job hiring website, so $116,000 is what they'll get. On top of that, military commander is more money than the rest of them, which I said I would choose the higher amount in most cases. And I also think that both of them are really high trained soldiers, so just calling them soldier isn't really describing their job correctly. And I feel like both of them would get leadership roles, so acting commander, pretty good. Next up is Torbjorn, who's a weapons designer and a chief engineer. Torbjorn is actually one of those that I had a lot of trouble with. I looked up chief engineers and weapon designers, and he ended up actually making less than his own daughter Brigitte, and so I didn't really feel that made sense, so I kept doing some research, And I might be jumping the shark just a little bit here, but I decided to use the statistics for nuclear engineers, which I know is not the same as weapon designers. But since technically weapon designs are now kind of nuclear in the modern day sometimes, I thought it'd be okay. And he's older, he's probably going to make more than most people because he's really experienced. And so I decided to make the exception here and give him the pay for nuclear engineering, even though that's technically not his exact job, and give him $120,000 a year. So he's above the commanders. Next up, believe it or not, is Winston. Winston's occupation are test subjects, which not really a job. I mean, technically, I guess it can be. But the next one makes more sense, which is scientist. And the last one is it's adventurer. What else would you have thought it? I'm going crazy. So obviously, we're going to go with scientist here. Since Winston likes computers and information, I decided to give him the occupation of computer and information research scientist, which make around $131,000 a year. And that is why Winston is going above Torbjorn.
Torbjörn,
Some people have been saying I say Torbjorn wrong. I don't really think I'm saying it wrong. Torbjorn.
Torbjörn,
Funnily enough, Hammond is up next. Hammond was also a test subject, a mech pilot, mechanic, and bodyguard. Off the top of my head, I can easily eliminate test subject and mechanic, and I'm going to go for mech pilot or bodyguard. I could have put Hammond with Orisa and Roadhog and just said he was a bodyguard, but then I looked up pilot, and I got a kind of insane number of $134,000. And since he's literally a hamster who can build mechs and then pilot them, I feel like that $134,000 is justified. And so that's why I am okay with putting the hamster in A tier. Next up on our list is Tracer. So Tracer's jobs are adventurer, pilot, and Overwatch agent. I'll be honest with you, it's no coincidence that I put Hammond and Tracer together, who happen to both be pilots. They're going to be paid the same because they have the same job of being a pilot. Obviously, I know Tracer is a flying pilot, Hamster is a hamster pilot, but I would like to think that Hammond would get paid extra because he's a hamster, and Tracer is very good at flying, according to the Overwatch lore. So they both would make $134,000. Next up is Sigma. Sigma is an astrophysicist. Unfortunately, I could not find an astrophysicist, but I found physicists and astronomers, which isn't the same, but it's kind of close. I'm hoping it's close at least, which the number is $147,000. Sigma is very, very smart and is well known in the Overwatch lore. So since he's kind of like a public icon, I feel like it's fair that he gets paid more than the average person. So even if that's not the exact number, I think $147,000 would make sense. Next up is Widowmaker and Hanzo. Widowmaker used to be a ballet dancer and is now an assassin, and Hanzo's a mercenary or assassin. You may have already realized that since we're past mercenary, I'm probably going to be choosing the assassin for both of them. For whatever reason, the healthyjournal.com is looking up what assassins' incomes are, which is around $168,000, which is not what I would have expected. But regardless, that's more than Sigma, so they both get to go above Sigma at $168,000 or something like that. So yeah, apparently hiring a murderer is quite expensive. It also pays really well. Before we move on to the S tier, I did actually forget someone, and that's Kiriko, because originally I had her in F tier, but then I realized that I actually made a mistake. Kiriko is either a vigilante or a shrine caretaker, which both of them have to do with vigilante work and not getting paid. However, I did do some research and I found a small number for shrine caretaker, which ends up being around $31,000. The issue is, out of all the numbers on this list, this is the one that I'm least confident about, because people who typically take care of shrines are typically people who do it for free, kind of like Zenyatta. So I'm not really sure if this number is right, but it would put Kiriko next to Bastion at $31,000 while he gets $29,000. But again, take this one out of all of them with a grain of salt, because this one I am not confident on. With that being said, I actually have to talk about Ash, which is another very difficult character. Ash's job is a thief or a gang leader, which is very, very hard to find an income for. So in this case, you would think I would put her in F tier because her income's going to be very inconsistent. However, her background shows that she is actually very consistent at doing heists and all that. We don't know how much money she makes though. And so I have an idea. Since she is a leader of a very successful gang, we can assume that she has made a lot of money. But do we know if she's a millionaire? We're not sure. And so by the colors, you can probably guess where I'm going to put her. I'm going to actually make a new tier and call it the Ash tier, because it's between A and S tier, and she has an A and an S. And so into Ash tier you go. because I'm not sure how much money she has made, but she comes from a rich family, and she's very successful at doing heists. Next up on our list is Lucio. Lucio's a DJ and a freedom fighter. Being a freedom fighter will probably not get you much money, so we'll be looking at the DJ side of him. The average DJ apparently makes $37,000 a year, but he's an S tier. Why is that? We do know that he is a very popular DJ. This is to the point where Diva, who is a professional gamer and very popular from what we know, also knows who Lucio is. We also see him playing in front of crowds, and he has his own DJ studio. So we can probably make the bold assumption that he's going to be a millionaire of some sort. But since we don't know how much money he makes, I'm not going to put him higher than the other people. But we do know that he's probably a millionaire, as popular music artists are just millionaires. Next up is Diva. Diva is a professional gamer, a mech pilot, and an actress. With Diva, I decided to go with the highest paying job, and probably the one she would most likely do in real life, and that is the professional gamer, even though she was formerly a professional gamer, because in the Overwatch lore she's a mech pilot for Overwatch. However, I still wanted to look at the job that would make her the most money. Knowing that Diva is potentially the most popular gamer in the Overwatch lore, we can just look at what the most popular gamers make nowadays. And so I looked up PewDiePie's net worth, and it's estimated to be around $30 million to $60 million. Using that number, we can assume that Diva is a millionaire. For these next two, I kind of have to make a bold assumption here. One thing I've realized about these millionaires is that I'm kind of making a bold assumption about them. And so next up is actually Doomfist and Ramatra. Doomfist is a martial artist, mercenary, CEO, and talent council member, while Ramatra is a military leader, Shimbale monk, leader of Null Sector, and inventor. The main similarity between Ramatra and Doomfist is that they're both leaders of terrorist organizations. Terrorist leaders just happen to also be some of the richest people on Earth. Osama bin Laden, for example, was actually a billionaire apparently. So Doomfist and Ramatra could be billionaires since they are the leading criminal organizations in the Overwatch lore. So even though Ramatra and Doomfist could be way higher than Diva and Lucio, they're in the same tier just because I can't calculate pretty much any of their numbers. But with that all being said, we only have one left. The last one left is Sombra, with her job being a hacker. On September 10th, 2001, then U.S. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld disclosed that his department was unable to account for roughly $2.3 trillion worth of transactions. The next day, the U.S. sustained the terrorist attack that changed the world, and this startling revelation was forgotten. Now, I'm not saying Sombra has $2.3 trillion, but it is very possible that she does. And so I'm going to put her in the U tier for being able to literally hack any amount of income she wants. Thank you everyone for watching, and sorry if my voice sounds super nasally. I'm kind of sick right now. I'm not like severely sick or anything, but just kind of feeling the allergies really badly. This list was actually a complete mess to make, and it took me a week or two to get all these numbers, and I really am not sure if they're completely accurate. Also, I'm going to break the fourth wall here real quick and say that the Sombra connection to 9/11 was not purposeful. I was literally just looking up how much money the United States has lost over the years, and that just came up. Anyways, if you enjoyed, like and subscribe. And since I have trouble reading comments, I do recommend that you guys join my Discord, because then you can talk to me directly. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all later.